You're one of the hardest working people I know.
Thanks.
In your 53rd year or whatever this is in the industry. What makes you get up and stay so excited to work so hard?
We're doing good work. I was getting in a law to help people. It's just that industry changed. But so I by accidents backed into this thing. I was talking to this young family, and the dad was just the husband was just giving me all this pushback, and I couldn't figure out why. And I kind of struck on it, and that was he didn't think he could qualify because of his history. And when I told him, I'll get you qualified. I can do this. I'll commit myself. He started crying. So anyway, that's what makes me get up in the morning still. Yeah.
Well, I know one thing for sure is that the world needs more Dan Maniacis.
Hands up, heads down, shake it on, turn around. We're kicking down, we're gaining ground. We do it right, do the here right now.
Well, I'm going to get started, but I don't know when Britt's going to start this, so we'll think. But Dan Maniaci,
yes, sir.
Welcome to Super TRUEper.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the invitation.
Well, for me, this has been a long-awaited interview because we spent a fair amount of time together the past 5 years.
Yes.
I mean, a decent amount. And so I know some things about you, but every time I talk to you, I find out new stuff. So this is going to be fun.
Okay.
And I have to force myself to say Maniaci and not Maniaci.
It's okay. Either way.
So if I mess it up. So Maniaci Insurance Services, Palos Verdes,
Yes,
California.
Yes, sir.
So what year did you start Maniaci Insurance?
1974.
1974. 04. Yeah. 14. Is that 50 years? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in the business since 72, though. But in those days, you always worked for an insurance company
Right.
to get training. I worked for Penn Mutual Life.
I don't even know where to start with this, but 50 years, 52 years in the insurance business.
Yeah.
50 years. Was it Maniaci Insurance Services to start? Was that the name of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As most of us did, is why we got the training. You had to start with an insurance company, New York Life, Prudential, remember, Penn Mutual, which was actually the 15th largest company at that time, to get training and figure out what it's all about. But first, I had no intention of doing this. That's number one. But typically what happens, you have a falling out. So I had a falling out. I took my cardboard box and went out on my own.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. You know what I want to do? I want to go back. We may do this chronologically. Who knows? This might get schizophrenic.
Okay.
But you're the founder and the president of Maniaci Insurance. 52 years in the business. Where did you grow up?
Grew up all over the state of California, truly. I was born in Brawley, which is like 30 miles from the Mexican border.
Okay.
In a house. We didn't have hospitals. So I spent time there and ended up in the big woods up on just the side of the Oregon border in the redwoods in a dirt floor place with my grandparents. Got water out of a creek and had an outhouse. Yeah. And then we kind of settled. And I went to school in Banning, which is another place out by Palm Springs in California. Went to the first grade there, and that's kind of cool because I was pretty young, but it was Little House on the Prairie. It was 1 through 6th grade, same class.
Really?
Yeah, and the teacher did wonderfully. So Mrs. Bear, I still remember her. And then we moved to La Puente, where I did most of my growing up. Yeah.
I got to dig into this a little bit. So
Sure.
You were born at home. 30 miles north of the Mexican border. What was your family like? Tell me about your parents, and did you have siblings at that time?
Well, a sister. Yeah, I had a sister. She was born a year and a half before I was. She was actually born in the Redwoods, though, as a point. And I had a brother that at the time, I didn't know he was a half-brother until he was in the Army. He came home, and he had named Zachary instead of Maniaci on his uniform. Until then, I had no clue he was still my brother, who I idolized. He was born in 40, so he was like 8 years older than I. But yeah, he was a good dude, really good dude.
So what were your parents like?
Well, first off, they were phenomenal. I look back on the events. I've been blessed, totally blessed. So I have these parents that, they're smart, really intelligent people, but uneducated. That's my parents. But to pick on my dad, who's a long haul truck driver, so he wasn't around. You know, he was gone a lot, and but he was one of the smartest guys, and I learned so much. I'd ride truck with him, and you know, and one experience that's still with me. So you know, we're hauling melons at the time, and you swamp melons. So you drive your truck into the field, and the braceros, I don't want to offend anybody, in those days they were called braceros, actually lived in Mexico and crossed the border in places like Nogales, Mexico, and you swamp the melons, and we're in the truck, and my dad says, get out and get in line. Like, oh, you're as good as those people. You know, get out there, not sitting in the truck and they're loading, get out, you start swamping melons. Right. Which is tossing them in a line up into the truck. Yeah. That teaches you a lot. And
How long were you there? How long were you?
Oh, we all had our deal. You know, my older brother had the hay when my dad was a hay hauler, which thank God I didn't. Those things weigh 80 pounds and you do them with hooks. You know, you lump them around with hooks. But I had case goods largely. As a point, that was my tenure with my dad, is helping him with the trucking business. But he's an entrepreneur, independent owner operator. So we did everything. You know, as a little kid, I worked on the trucks. You know,
How long were you in that town in the South?
In and out, actually. So was born there. We stayed there several years, 3 or 4 years. Went up north, and my dad was hauling those giant redwoods when you could farm them. And my grandfather was a logger. My great grandfather was a logger, so that's why they were there. And so we lived up there in that neighborhood for a while. Yeah. So kind of with trucks, and my dad was, to get back to my dad started, and you learn a lot. You learn a lot, actually. So, and my superpower is I think I'm observant, and I appreciate that. And then my mind connects stuff. Yeah. And so I think back on my dad. He started in let's say lost at least 3 companies. Up there in the Redwoods, he had 7, 8 trucks, which is pretty big. Yeah. But he couldn't get out of driving he just loved driving the truck. And you got to run a business. So that was like my mantra when I started my own is, you know, once I had to run the business, it's like, get out of the truck. I never was really effective at that because I like selling too, meeting the clients. But yeah, kind of like that. But he just taught me. He taught me a lot. So I was riding one time. We're in this. So we went from that. We were hauling a load of picking up a load of paint at Benjamin Moore. And so think about it. My dad's talking to braceros. And so he was back in the truck up. They were doubles, and only a trucking person kind of know this. They're articulating. You got 8 axles, but they articulate. Right. My dad backed that thing around the corner, and I'm standing next to the foreman of this company, and the warehouse foreman. And he goes, you know, your dad's like an artist. Oh wow. You know, but that teaches you stuff. You don't have to be an artist. You don't have to be a corporate executive. This guy was accomplished compared to us, but yeah, my dad was an artist, absolutely artist. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. My mom was amazing, and you know, you have books, Think and Grow Rich, and positive thinking. That was my mom before the books were written. And the amazing thing about my mom is that we're in La Puente, which is the wrong side of the tracks in that particular neighborhood. And you know, she taught us, you know, that our environment didn't determine who we were. Right. Which has a good and a bad to it, but nevertheless, that's just brilliant. So she has a bunch of kids that went out and did stuff differently than most of the rest of the community. Because of that, and the uniqueness of my mom was in our living room is a head from a diesel engine that we're grinding the valves. Right. And she's telling us, no, this is not us. You know, we're better than this. You're going to school and getting out of here. Also, you're not getting the trucking business either.
Well, it's interesting how I directly see all of that in you. Like you're obviously. You are still in client facing and engaged. Yeah. You're still driving the truck a little bit.
Yeah, I am, which is I lament, but yes. Yeah.
Well, that is interesting.
Yeah. But I have help. So, you know, I have Eric joined me, and then, you know, that expanded the business and gave me some respite from the management side. And then we very astutely hired Karina, and she runs the place so that we're not burdened with it, and does free me up to do that. Yeah.
For the listeners and watchers, that would be your son, Eric. And then Karina, not Flores anymore. What's Karina's name?
Vaquero. But I consider her a daughter. I actually walked her down the aisle in the wedding.
a whole interesting conversation about Karina, who started out as a receptionist, and is her title president now? What is her title?
Vice president.
Vice president.
We gave her stock after about 6, 8 years. Which she earned. We didn't give her nothing, which she earned. Yes.
Yes. All right. So you end up in the LA area in school.
Sure.
And then your mom's preaching education in college and more.
Oh, yes.
So where did you end up going to school? College?
Loyola of Los Angeles in those days. LMU today.
Loyola Marymount that we would know today.
Sure.
Which is a small Jesuit school. Actually, Val's daughter Tess almost went to school there.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if not for COVID, by the way, Val, my wife, also known as Miss Hot Dog around here.
Oh, boy.
I know. She loves it every time.
You're in trouble again.
Tess was a 2021 graduate, and she was accepted at Loyola Marymount, Santa Clara, San Diego, and she couldn't tour any of those schools because college was completely shut down in California.
Sure.
And so she ends up at the University of Alabama, which is the opposite of all those schools.
I see.
Yes. But what was your time like? And what were you like in college, the 18 to 22-year-old Dan Maniaci?
Yeah, well, first off, I'll reiterate several times, totally blessed. Opportunity was thrust on me. In my senior year, I was running a restaurant, fast food restaurant. It's a chain, small chain, but a chain in California. And then they discovered the manager was stealing, but he wasn't doing his job. They discovered I was doing the job as a senior in high school, and they asked me if I wanted it.
Oh, wow.
Which I took for the money I needed for school as a point. So you got that. But me in La Puente was an overachieving, driven dude. And that's, I played football, wrestled. I was president of the Honor Society, which is interesting. I wrote articles for the yearbook, and did really well in classes. So yeah, it was pretty much an overachiever and sprung, wound tighter than a Swiss watch. So, and I was driven. I went to Loyola on purpose. I was accepted to UCL and the big ones, but I went to Loyola because of Loyola Law School. So that's why I was there to do that. There you were. Something I'm doing, yes.
So at what age would you say you recognized or others recognized that you were driven and focused?
Well, I'm not sure. I can't say if anybody did, really, except, again, I was given opportunities. One of my earlier jobs at 12, I worked in a rubber factory, and I started out separating bladders for balls and then cutting out the stems so we could melt the rubber to make rubber presses. And not too long after that, a smaller company, the owner said, "Do you want to run the lathe?" I don't know. And if you screwed up on the lathe cutting the lines in the press, they have to start over and throw it out. So it was pretty phenomenal. So I don't know. I can say I'm blessed. It's like somebody said, "Hey, watch this kid and he's going to do good." That kind of thing. I really don't know the question, but if the transition time is I got hit in the face with the 60s at Loyola.
Yeah.
Flat out hit in the face with the 60s.
Well, before we get to the 60s, I do want to spend some time in that era because I've got a suspicion we're going to get some good stories out of that late 60s in college in California.
Yeah.
But you said, this is interesting, you said you're blessed and you've had opportunities. You took a job at 12 years old in a rubber factory?
Sure.
But that's not normal? Or maybe, was that normal back then?
I don't know. I worked, like say I would be grinding those valves by the by at a relatively young age, and I know what a micrometer was at the relatively young age.
How do you get it? Was it? I guess there were no child labor laws at that time.
Oh, no, nothing like today, huh?
So you had a real job at 12 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of so. The question I asked of when you were driven, it started at least at 11 or 12.
Yeah, I think my mom created this thing in us that you can be better. This ethic that you can be better. My older brother was accepted to Annapolis. He he farmed that. Typical of my older brother. My sister went to a training school for dental assistants and ended up running dental practices. And my brother went from being an iron worker which we both did that as a summer job because apprentice made more money than anybody in a union job. He stayed with it and built 2 of the tall buildings in LA. Then decided, I think I'll become a chiropractor. Yeah. So I got out of it totally. Yeah. So no, I think my mom made us darn overachievers.
Well,
just by her presumption of you are better than this and you will succeed and you will be out of here. And keep in mind, my mom came from her house was a dirt floor outhouse, and you got water from the creek. So the other message there is was serious a message. Your environment doesn't dictate who you are. Your situation doesn't dictate who you are, really. So
those stories. Where did your mom and dad meet? How did they meet?
Oh, my dad was in the service in San Francisco. My mom was in the service in San Francisco. So they met there during the war. Yeah.
And how old? So they were in their early 20s or so?
So born in 20. Yeah, for sure. My dad was born in 1920. My mom 24. So sure, at the end of the war, 45. Sure. My sister was born in 47.
When were they both born in California?
Yes. Yeah, but again, opposite ends. One's up the North Oregon border. One's in actually, that's not true. My dad was born in Cleveland.
Okay.
Yeah, and they moved. My grandfather moved him to California.
So where were your grandparents born?
Italy.
What part of
Sicily? We're Sicilians. Yeah.
Oh, I might.
St. Augusta.
I've got to watch my back around.
Perhaps that's why they left.
So you're Sicilian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I might have known that. You know what? There's in our True Network family. There's a fairly strong Italian presence with Joe Genovese and others.
Sure. He's Sicilian also.
Oh, is he?
We stick together.
Okay. So your mom grew up very poor, which shaped the way she thought.
Sure.
What do you think? I don't even know if this is a fair question about your mom, but and I would share you a story about my mom too. But what do you think gave her the knowledge, the ability, the confidence to push you the kids so much into this optimistic, overachieving group?
Oof. I never asked her that question. Everything was, like I say, think and grow rich, it was all implication. Why would she think so? Well, I think she honestly, first off, it has to be genuine or you're not going to communicate messages like that well. I think she genuinely believed that we could be better.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget that they're older. That generation of your kids got to be better off than you or you weren't successful.
Right.
And that permeated everything in that genre. Yeah. To the point. I have that. I'm sure you have it as well, but it's harder today. But yeah, I think that's perhaps what it is. But again, I never asked her the question, but it was just presumed, It
was interesting. My mother was similar.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't grow up with very much. They grew up in a little town called Talladega, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Most people know
that's
the race.
Racing
it is.
Town, yes.
So there's actually a town, Talladega, and moved to Huntsville when she was in high school. And really never had very much. She was a little wild in high school. But she read a lot, and from the time I was small, it was all, you can be better, you should be better, you're going to be better.
Yeah.
That was what I heard
positively,
all the time.
You are better.
That's right.
Live up to it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, it didn't matter the holes, the patches in our jeans or anything. They were clean. That's what mattered.
I just told Val the other day, I can remember being in 7th grade. My parents divorced and I was in the summer after 6th grade. So 7th grade, I spent one semester in a Huntsville, Alabama middle school. Chapman Middle School, if there anybody is even listening to this and knows that. And I can remember 2 kids picking on me because they recognized that I was wearing the same jeans to school every day. Oh. I vividly remember that feeling. They were behind me, poking me, talking to me, and this is going to be a little emotional. It's not emotional, but other people might find it that. This was a single tear, like made its way to the edge of my eyelashes and dropped down. And one of them said, "Oh, he's crying," and the baby, like, I remember that so strongly.
Certainly.
That it was actually a moment where I can look back and say that I'm not going to have this feeling again.
It's a defining moment. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
I almost got in my first fight that day too, but that's something else.
Could have been a real defining moment.
It could have been. Yeah. So let's get to the 60s in California in college.
Yeah, and here comes, well, I have to just at this point. So my sister and her boyfriend, whom I didn't like, take me to school, drop me off. I had my military duffel bag, from military surplus, Army surplus. I had my Marine Corps wool blanket and a typewriter that I bought from the typewriter training class that had no, because I knew how to type. You didn't need to know what the characters were on the keys. So showed up at Loyola, all driven and ready to
take on the world.
Yeah. Well, that I got to get into law school now, so I got to do this stuff. And a couple of things really occurred. One is my roommate was a black person, brilliant fella, and we didn't have any of those. We were in a Mexican community, so that was a revelation. It was right after 1965 Watts riots, and he was very accomplished. He rolled up in his own car. Yeah. His mom was a nurse. His dad was a policeman at San Pedro's. But it really gave me a great opportunity. It's like, what in the hell's wrong with you people? Yeah. You burnt your own neighborhood down. And he's just real insightful. It's like we didn't own any of it. Right. So it didn't matter. Oh. Things like I learned a lot from. He actually went on to run the Peace Corps. Just started after we got out of school. So he's a brilliant fella. So there's that, and then on the my wing, I had a fella who was a surfer, which is a culture. It's like, hey, dude, laid back culture, which was not antithesis of what I was all about. But I don't know, we kind of gravitated to one another. I think I helped him in a bit, and then he helped me lighten up. And then the '60s was there, which is the whole thing was lighten up. Yeah. Seriously. So, all the stuff you learned, all the institutions, all this stuff, that's all bad. I don't agree with that, but I lived it. Sure. Wonderfully, actually. Lived it to its fullest. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting when you think of culturally. This is 65 through maybe 69, that time?
66 through 70. Yeah.
66 through 70. Mm-hmm. So very little access to news. I mean, you basically had some television news and newspapers. So when you're walking into college, like you said, with your stuff under your arm and idealistic and just all that you knew from your family and your environment, and then you have a black guy from LA that's your roommate and a surfer. I'm just trying to put that in context now. Everybody knows every personality, you just kind of know. You went into I've never had black friends. I don't have surfing friends. Mm-hmm. And now you just put in a little
it's
dorm
far
with
worse.
them.
One of the other guys from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with a rebel flag on the wall.
Really?
Uh-huh. Yeah, we had that. And then we had Cirilo Flores, who became a bishop in Corona in California for the Catholic Church. Yeah. And then one of my other friends was in the seminary at the time. Oh, it was an eclectic group, to be modest. Yeah, for sure.
I want to be teleported to that dorm room suite. I mean, that is a fascinating group of people in a sort of seminal time in U.S. history to be in that small Jesuit school.
Yeah, exactly. But your comment about media and all, it's true. But, I knew about the Watts riots because of Joe Pine was on TV. Not that anybody remember him, but the guy flashed a gun on TV and said, they come anywhere near me. Yeah. So he was an ex-Marine, actually had lost a leg. So the guy was pretty much patriotic, but that's how it manifested itself. But so I knew of that and the occurrences, but no. Plus you're in a small Jesuit community. You're insulated from most. Right. We had two events. The Black Student Union, all six of them, I think, took over one of the buildings, and the Jesuits said, "Okay, cool, keep it." And then they showed up for dinner at the cafeteria. I think they gave up, went away. That was it. UCLA down the streets, burning things and all. Walton himself, the basketball player, was having trouble with his coach about stuff he was doing and the link to his hair and all the rest, but we had none of that. The biggest thing we had was in my junior year, they brought women on in anticipation of this LMU, Loyola Marymount aggregation, and the priest got weird. It's like, hey, Maniaci, you might want to shave. Oh. Things like that, which is a hippie. I wasn't quite a hippie, but nevertheless, it was really a laid-back environment. So if you didn't shave, you didn't shave. A bunch of guys, they didn't care. Right. Bring women on, it changed the whole equation. And it wasn't us. It was the priest, which is interesting. Yeah.
What was that time? I mean, talk a little more about what life was like for those 4 years. I'm sure you were a driven student, so you were studying, but you were also having a good time, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I was still driven. I still had my goals and all, and I also needed to work, and that changed. So again, I can't keep reiterating. I'm just blessed, so blessed. But what was it like? It was a culture clash for me, but for a lot of reasons. Is the world was on fire, against the Vietnam War, and then again against institutions and things. So fraternities were going out as a point. So a lot of stuff that I would have anticipated was not what it became. Not what it was really, within a couple of years.
Were you working at this fast food restaurant still?
No. What happened is part of I had scholarships and stuff, not enough, but I had a work study. So I worked for the university, which, was just so weird. So I worked for the university, and one of the jobs I got was the shell house, the crew team shell house. So the first year, I'm 5'10", so I'm too short, but I rode in the bow for the first year. So I got paid to row.
Oh.
The coach was the director of housing. So he made me an RA, so I got room and board for free. Mm-hmm. And then in those days, they provided linens and stuff. So I ran the linen service, ordered the linens, and had a team of guys that collected them and all this stuff. Yeah, so I got paid for that and all. And then after that, I worked at the shell house full time. So yeah, it was kind of cool. Oh, and I had a Jeep, 1952 Jeep.
Okay.
So now I had wheels.
Right.
That were my own, essentially. I got to drive them all over. Yeah, so I got, by that just one connection, I had wheels, I had, money, cake jobs, 3 of them at the time, free room and board. It was good. Well, life was good.
Yeah, there's a constant theme here. You were always doing the work where you were getting recognized to be blessed. But so when you said you had long hair, how long was your hair? Oh, no, it's my freshman year in the crew team, every freshman had a mohawk. Oh.
And they had to tackle me to get that out of me, but they succeeded. Yeah, so the freshman year had a mohawk, which is, in those days was interesting. Actually in vogue, as it turned out, but no longer than my neck, maybe. Yeah.
Are there pictures of you with a mohawk somewhere?
No, actually not. That was the other thing. You didn't do that kind of thing. Truly, I have no pictures from college at all. Actually, no, that's not true. I discovered one with the crew team. We're in the state of Washington, running against those folks, and. But that's the only picture I've seen. Many didn't even show up for graduation. I did, out of deference to my parents. They worked hard to get me there.
Right.
And they deserve that. And the family thing, so my dad brought his whole darn family.
Oh, yeah.
So there's that. But so I had to do that. But many of them showed up with Mickey Mouse hats and Donald Duck hats and stuff,
It was
anti-establishment, yeah. And even at a small Jesuit school, it still leaked in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
At what point... I don't know if this is the right time. When did you meet your wife?
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so let's see, that would be 1968. So they came to me, that small restaurant chain, and said, we got this store in Torrance, which is close to Loyola, suburb of LA, and it's having trouble. We need a new manager. Will you go in there in the summer, resurrect it, and train them? And so I took the job during the summer. And so...
You were 17, 18 years old?
Yeah, actually 18 at that time, yeah. So anyway, my method, I never told anybody this, my method was hiring the bitchinest girls I could find because then guys would flock and buy tacos and burgers.
Right.
That works, by the way.
Still works today.
Yeah, so I hired one of the bitchinest babes I could find, and all of Torrance was my wife, yeah.
Did you know her?
No, but what's important is she lied, which is her. She was 15 when I hired her. A month later, so she turned 16. But anyway, she became 16, and I was older, so you didn't do that. Also, my mindset, I was living the 60s.
Yeah.
So person I was with helped me live the 60s, which was not my wife at all.
Do you remember the first time you saw your wife? What's your wife's name?
Noreen.
Yeah. The first time you saw her, do you remember the first time you saw her?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, she's beautiful. Yeah.
And you were like, I've got to have her work here?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I did that in high school. That's what I did. In fact, that's why I never went to graduation and got a deference to my parents for their efforts, but I didn't go to all-night parties and all that stuff because I had to go back. I hired the girls from high school to work in the stand, so they went after graduation to all-night parties and stuff. So I worked those evening shifts, stuff like that. So, oh yeah, absolutely, she was.
Now, when did the romantic sparks fly?
Yeah, it's sort of right after that, I got a job writing articles for a stock advisory publication, but this is going to sound major stupid. Computers barely existed, lasers barely existed in aerospace when it's infancy. So the stock advisory publication called Computer Research Bureau was devoted to them, those industries, which were pretty minuscule. So, and we wrote the first computer dictionary, by the by, as a point.
Are you still 18 years old now?
19. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but it's a stock advisory publication, and I got paid a hellacious amount of money, which is why I took the job, and again ran a specific department for the organization. But we'd go in places like IBM into the basement, which is where computers were at the time, check out the business model, what they're doing, all that stuff, go back and write about it and tell people to invest or not. So yeah, that's what we did.
How does that happen? You're in high school, working at a fast food restaurant, hiring good-looking girls as a strategy. Where did you meet someone, and how did you know what to write?
Oh, no, I'm not completing the thought. I don't know. Well, I got awards. I got awards for writing. I wrote a poem in 6th grade that was quasi-published. It was what do you call it? It was a TV show holding up, kids' work,
right? Stuff
like that. So no, I had proficiency in writing. I think I was pretty good. In the 3rd grade, I won a LA Times article on the Bill of Rights, the contest. So
okay, so we keep going back to
when
you were driven.
Well.
Yeah,
as a point. But so but that's not the connection. That's what happened was 1970 happened. Okay. I graduated, and the market crashed.
Okay,
and since who knew what the heck a computer or a laser was, that's the first thing that went down. So the company went bankrupt, even though it was paid well. Accepted loyal law, but already decided. I had friends that were ahead of me that were doing pro bono work for cities to work. There was no jobs per se, and I was making more money at the time anyway. So to pay my bills, I worked in a hot dog factory, actually. Dodger dogs.
Dodger dogs.
Yeah, for a few months till I could get my sea legs and what I wanted to do. Yeah.
Well, the fact that I grew up a Dodgers fan, we'll get to that too.
See?
But I did.
Lowest man on the line. So, yeah.
But
anyway, so
sparks fly. When did the sparks fly?
Well, same guys called me up. Hank Wallander, I remember him. He graduated from USC, brilliant VP. Anyway, he learned that I was not working, or I was working at a hot dog factory, and said, that same store you built and resurrected, it's in trouble again. Would you do it again? And instead of working in a hot dog factory, which was no fun at all, I said, yeah, heck yeah. So I went back into Torrance, the same store, and did exactly what I did before. Found out if she was free, and she was, and did the same model, beautiful women,
right? And
resurrected the store. Yeah.
And that's when you started dating.
Yeah.
In 1970.
Yeah, exactly.
And what year were you married?
1972.
Okay, so 2-year romance.
Yeah, you kind of did that in those days. Absolutely, make sure you were semi-compatible. You didn't live together. That was not cool. Well, kind of was, but not in my world.
Yeah.
But yeah, so. Yeah, absolutely. Kissed her the first time and got dizzy. Still get dizzy when I kiss her, but I'm going to tell her that because she'd probably do it on purpose, take advantage of me, but steal my wallet or something.
So you've been married 52 years.
October.
The same amount of time you've been in the insurance business.
Yeah, that's to her credit. I don't know why the hell somebody of her caliber would say, yeah, this guy's got absolutely nothing, and I'm going to hitch my wagon to him and hang with every dumbass idea he could come up with, and she did and has all these years. Great credit to her. Actually, my success is due to her. So, had I stayed with a young lady during college, or any of those young ladies, great people, but they wouldn't have tolerated half the nonsense I put my wife through.
Well, shout out to Noreen.
Yes, thank you. That's well deserved, actually.
Well, let's. By the way, this could be the longest episode ever, so I'm going to try to get to as much as I can. So, you're married in 72. You start in the insurance business in 72. I mean, so you've worked in a manufacturing plant with rubber and stuff. And you've done Dodger dogs, and you've written research for a computer industry that barely existed. You worked at a restaurant, then you managed a restaurant. You worked for the college.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you stumble into the insurance business?
It was stumbling, but to circle back, think about all that. So I'm not naturally a salesperson. In fact, I told my parents what I was doing. They started laughing. You're not a salesman, which I'm not. I'm not. Yeah. I'm a technician, but not a salesperson. But I learned customer service, running a restaurant, how to manage people. I learned all kinds of skills and all these things. All these endeavors I was doing, So it's kind of cool. So directly is I had a headhunter.
Okay.
Trying to, find out what get me a good spot, but not in here's the mandate, not in the restaurant business. Right. So I answered a management ad, and it was Paul Holman and Associates, not insurance. So I'm sitting in the lobby, and I have this appointment with Paul L. Holman, and I got to talk to these people. I got to know something. So I pick up a Wall Street Journal that said Penn Mutual Life. Shit. So I had my hand on the door handle, and Paul Holman came out, and I said, well, I'm here. I'll talk to him. And he had a compelling story. He was a good salesman. Yeah. Compelling story. It was an all college graduate place. Not that that's so important. All business focused. So I responded to that. So.
And you were 24-ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I did really well. They flew me back to Pennsylvania and gave me a gold watch and a plaque, stuff like that. I was one of the top 10 in the country. 6 months I was managing the place for him, training people and all.
And where was this office?
Pasadena, California, Rose Bowl area.
Yeah. I love Pasadena. Yeah. And then, so you're there 2 years, and
yeah, it was again, I was doing well, but what happened is struck on the idea that benefits, which didn't really exist, which is not really stupid, but we used benefits to get into executive life insurance. But think about this. So the first case I sold was $12.50 an employee, $26.50 a family. Mm-hmm. But I made 50% commission.
Right.
But you still can't feed a family on $6,
Yeah.
So at any rate, it wasn't profitable, but it led me into being a top producer in life insurance for the executives. So it worked out really well as a model, but then the GA got greedy and said, you do all this group stuff. I want some of that because you're here. Mm-hmm. And I said, that ain't happening. Keep in mind, I was leading the agency and training people and all kinds of stuff. So I said, that ain't happening. He relented, and I packed my personal stuff in a cardboard box and said, thanks. See ya. Gone,
So at 26 years old, roughly, you were like, I'm going to start Maniaci Insurance.
I'm going to go out on my own. It's first off, there's a thing you need to know about Sicilians. My dad's an independent operator. My brother's a chiropractor. My other brother actually did get in the trucking business. My sister's running businesses. Mm-hmm. We don't play well in a sandbox. Right. Just as the point, So I probably would flourish better on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if it was just me and one person. And my wife was my secretary. We had a daughter at the time, and by a previous relationship, it was the 60s, whom I adopted right after we got married. But so she worked part-time, my part-time secretary, and then and a part-time mom.
So you were selling insurance.
Same model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? So just as a way of comparison, I got in the insurance business at 25 with New England Financial.
Sure.
Which at that time was a mutual company.
Sure.
They were not purchased by MetLife yet. To be a financial planner, AKA sell a bunch of life insurance.
Yeah, really.
They were just dabbling in investments, but I really wanted to be a financial planner. They wanted me to sell life insurance.
Sure.
They had a group specialist, one per office of all the New England offices. And his role really was, he was selling group insurance, but it was to provide entree for life insurance and executive benefits.
Yeah.
And I've always said I starved my way into employee benefits because I was so terrible at selling life insurance. And he just taught me how to cold call for group insurance. Over the next 18 months, I got really good at that. And the general agent at that time came to me and said, I'm either going to have to take a portion of that, or you're going to have to sell more life insurance.
Sure. And
I said, well, I don't think I want to do that. So I left, and I started Metro Benefit Consultants in Atlanta.
Swear.
Which was me in my basement.
There you go. honestly.
That's interesting.
Isn't that something? Yeah, the same thing. It's like just wasn't fair. I was in my case, I was producing a large amount of business for the agency, and doing a lot more work as well. But yeah, it's just flat out greed, and I didn't appreciate that whatsoever.
So you're 26. What are those first 2 or 3 years like? You've got a young child. Had you had a child yet? When did you have?
Eric was born in '73.
Okay.
Yeah, so a year or so later. Yeah.
So take me back to, you have now 2 children. It's like 1974. What's your life like in 1974 with 2 kids and your own practice? What's that like?
Mission driven.
Yes. Yeah.
Totally goal oriented. Totally so. It was a struggle. You know, but like I say, you have to give great credit to my wife. She was there. She was a secretary as long as till I could afford we could afford someone else. Is it a point? Yeah. No, it's a lot of hours. But you know, I have to keep going. I'm blessed. I sleep required even then 4 hours or less of sleep a night. So I've got more life than most people. So I spend it reading, and also I have my wife would say an addiction to reading.
Yep.
Voraciously, I would say, but she'd say, no, it's a flat out addiction. You get your face in a book or magazine all the time, which is true. So, you know, my education's my thing, elevating myself is my thing. So I'd spend the night reading, whatever. When the kids got old enough, I coached soccer and baseball, and then did my work at night when they were asleep, things like that. So no, I'm blessed with, again, more life than most.
Well, I want to touch on a couple of these things.
Yeah.
I'm making sure I remember both of them before I go into one, because they might get us off on tangents. Well, one, how much of what you read now is any fiction? Do you read any fiction, or you read almost all? No,
I read about a book a week, if not more. So right now, in fact, on the airplane, I finished C.G. Cooper's Patriot Patrol, Protocol. Just total garbage to put my head back together, get it centered, thinking about all the dirt and stuff you pick up in the course of the day. But at the same time, I'm reading, it's Paul Monahan's book, The Best Game, something like that. It's talking about golf.
Yeah.
It's self-improvement because it's 80% of the game, he purports, and I agree, is mental.
Yes.
But, you know, a chapter on elongate your focus, that's a business thing. Don't look over the hood of your car. You can be driving all over the road. Your business is elongated. Another chapter was something like, playing, not to lose, which you've heard before, prevent defense. And all that doesn't work, you know.
Yeah.
That's a business thing, but it's in this golf book. Yeah.
It's so interesting. I'm going to bring this up because there are these parallels. I mean, are you aware that I read fiction all the time to distract myself and relax? So I've slowed down.
Yeah, distraction's a good word.
Yeah. It's the only time my mind can be quiet.
That's exactly right, to turn it off. Yeah.
So I've slowed way down, but last year, 2023, I read like 108 books or something like that.
Swear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
I can relate.
That's my thing.
I can relate.
And I'm probably I'm probably down to like 50 or so this year. My pace has just slowed down for various reasons.
Yeah.
Now I forgot what the second thing was. See, I tried to lock onto those two things.
Let me finish. But you know, they're not just like that. Paul Monahan's book. It's your corollary to business. I can't shut it off totally, but it's there. Or Dean Koontz. That guy writes a book a week just to keep up with that guy. And he wrote a book called Out of the Corner of His Eye. That got me into quantum science and string theory, and it's a mystery.
Right.
So, you know, you almost can't turn it off. You know? If you good book selection. Stephen King, I was like addicted to until he had his accident and got weird.
This is my red hot idea, but we have so much in common. I've read every word Stephen King's written.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you like after his accident, he got kind of macabre?
He did.
He got weird, but prior to The Stand, I mean, these are brilliant. And I read a lot of apocalyptic stuff.
Do you know what I'm reading right now?
It's a human nature thing.
I'm rereading the Dark Tower series right
now. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, as we speak, I'm reading it.
I was reading it as he wrote it. Yeah. Remember, it was all protracted.
Yep.
Yeah.
I read that. I read it back then.
Yeah.
I just very rarely do I reread things.
Yeah.
But that was something that I was just like, you know, it's been 20 years, whatever it's been.
Yeah.
The Stand was my mother. So I read that way too early. It was like middle school.
Oh.
And which got me on Stephen King, which really, you know, advanced my reading.
Sure.
I really shouldn't have been reading that stuff that early.
Well, because he's a character study kind of guy, and that's the beauty of Stephen King as opposed to other mystery writers and stuff like that. It's just a beautiful thing to watch how he develops the character.
100%.
And again, it correlates to life. You and I bump into these people.
Yes.
We are these people. Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Oh yeah, and how that 1 mile, the Green Mile business.
Oh yeah,
where it was like the old cereal thing. He wrote that, and it's like I can't wait till the next one that comes out.
Yeah,
it's just killing me. Same thing with and a lot of books like that. Just I can't wait. Well, I'm sure you were into Harry Potter too.
Yeah,
same thing. I read every one of those, and I when I got paid big bucks for the hard copy, couldn't wait for the soft copy, or thing like that.
Yeah, I devour books like that.
Yeah,
there's certain. We have a true agency down in New Iberia, Louisiana, and James is the principal down there. There's an author named James Lee Burke, which I just you would love. I think
Lee Burke? Okay.
James Lee Burke.
I'll check that.
And here's why I love giving recommendations like this to voracious readers, because he writes this whole series about a detective based in Louisiana. But there's like 16 or 18 books.
Yeah.
So like I know now that you've got like this whole library of stuff that you're going to absolutely fall in love with, because he is a character-driven guy. Like he develops characters so well.
Sure.
Well, I could talk with Stephen. We may just need to have like a Stephen King episode.
I like that. Oh, absolutely. Just brilliant stuff. It's just brilliant. But don't discount Dean Koontz.
So I haven't read him lately. I read his whole. There was a series about. There's a character that has some kind of superpower. That
Odd Thomas.
Odd Thomas. That's a great. That whole thing was amazing.
Oh, it is. There you go. Talk about character study, and you're living life through his eyes. It's just, and you've seen that way to accomplish the book story a lot, but it's just a beautiful thing. Absolutely. But you've got to read Out of the Corner of His Eye if you have any interest in and I've gotten actually weird about it. In the quantum science, it's down to the subatomic level, almost pure energy. And these are scientists, by the way, right? So they, in working with this, they made the energy, because it's part matter, part energy, wave theory. They made it move by thought. Oh, that's prayer. That's validation of prayer. If you think about it, that you can move something by thought. So I invite you to look to that. And string theory, which is kind of you.
Yeah.
Trying to true. The string theory is everything's connected.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. As you've developed it and built it, yeah. So that out of a mystery novel, which is kind of ugly, but a great story. Well, and Elsewhere is a follow-up where this daughter and the dad and the daughter are moving between universes, which is part of that theory too, about different multiple universes. Yeah.
What I know now.
Now we've gotten weird. We proved to everybody out there that weirder than hell. But sorry,
I'm about to make it even more.
You can edit the crap out of that.
No, actually, I'm going to follow up with it. This is what I really believe is that I have. The only thing I know is that I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the purpose of life is. I don't know the meaning of it. I don't know the structure of it. I don't know. And so when somebody is so certain around like, oh, I have this figured out, I'm like, well, okay, maybe you do, or maybe that person does.
Or for them or me anyway. Yeah.
It's like, let's say, for example, this, and it's Stephen King writes a lot about these parallel universes and things like that.
Sure.
And somebody that's crazy.
Like the gunslinger.
Yeah, the gunslinger. I'm like, that's great. I'm like, is it? Like, why is it crazy?
Yeah.
Why is it not possible that there is another existence just like this? I don't understand why that's impossible. Because if we believe in things, like faith is believing in the unseen, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know.
It's not quite the Matrix where we're all strapped into a device in some big building, but isn't it the truth? Why not?
Also, not off the table for me.
Yeah.
I don't think we're strapped in. But I don't know. Do we know?
No, we don't. But no, I have the answer for myself anyway, and it's metaphysical. But I think that for me, I'm put on this earth to learn stuff and to grow personally. I think that's my purpose. I need to do that, and a way to do that is read, learn stuff, be curious about almost everything. Lord, I read women's magazines so I can try and figure them people out. That's stuff like that.
You know what? I'm not even going to respond to that, because whatever I said would be frowned upon. Although we're never going to do that.
You're going to edit this all out.
We're going to edit this one out.
Clean this up. Yeah, this weird crap.
But it is interesting around like my kids see a different side of me than anybody, right? They see dad, and especially when your kids get older, you don't have access to them as much, and so I'll have to make myself stop being like optimistic and a cheerleader, and like sometimes they just want to listen and talk about music, and I'm
Sure.
teaching. Yeah.
Sure.
But I've said to them before, and I've said to anybody that wants to listen, or we have this conversation about happiness, is that, the curiosity and constant growth is part of the gumbo. Like it's part of the recipe.
Isn't it
And
true?
we may have a little bit of a different recipe. Like your recipe for gumbo might be a little bit different than ours,
It should be.
but the roux is the same. Like
That's right.
to get us started, I do think that part of happiness is curiosity and constant growth. There's got to be something about a strong part of that's got to be helping other people. Like even if it's just your family, but a mission, part of your mission is to help others.
Sure.
Like those two things are like part of the roux of the gumbo of happiness. I'm sure
think
there's
so.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Humility, respect, all the goodness that a human being can be. Absolutely. Yeah, I think if you operate with those, I'm a fan of "Be Humble and Kind." That record, that's an anthem for a way to live. So no, absolutely true.
I almost don't want to leave this subject. We may come back to it because I got so excited about it.
Yeah, you were asking about the '60s, which was a culture shock for a poor, driven,
Well, so
kid out of the barrio. Shoot.
well, I'm going to jump into how many kids do you have?
2.
Right. And they're how old now?
Oh, shoot. Eric just turned 50.
Yeah.
My daughter's 53.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm 54. Val's 53.
Wow.
I know it's crazy. I mean, this is all relative because there's been a series of people who've come here that are like 36 and 37, or we had dinner last night, and I was like, I think I know her mother. Like I went to high school with her mother.
Exactly.
It's all relative.
Sure.
So let me jump back in just so we can maybe use a little bit of time just to tie up work life from 1970 to now. That's a long time. Or maybe 1975 to now. It's kind of easy to see with your driven nature, your constant learning, your curiosity, that the business was going to grow, right? So today, roughly...
No, actually not intentionally.
Really?
I apologize for cutting you off with the question. No, not my intention. First off, I have a mantra that the getting out of the truck business is number one. Number two, I don't want to be poor again. But that doesn't mean I'm money hungry. I want to create money. My concept, and again, not even to grow a business, my concept was create a good living for our family. And money gives you the ability to do stuff. So not accumulation of capital or my name in lights. That's definitely not my thing. Eric actually brought that to the agency. But I just wanted to have a good life for my family. So that was what was driving me. The fact that it was successful was accident, not intention, really. I'm not going, we're going to do this now. We're going to grow here. And we're going to It's I put my head down, sold insurance.
Well, but I think that's been your nature, is that when I said it was going to grow, I meant, and I mean, it was going to grow because of who you were. It's impossible to be curious and hardworking and accounting conscious and all those things.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to be those things and not have growth.
I think that's true. And there's a dark side, is I tried it. I tried to control the growth because then it required me getting bigger. And as you well know, you get so big, you have such an income, and then you have to reinvest.
Yeah.
And your income drops off.
Right.
And then it goes up, and then it drops off. And I tried to stop that. And you will kill a company by doing so.
Yeah.
It has a natural growth. A company, it's getting metaphysical and weird. A company's an entity that has a life. As weird as that, odd as that sounds, you can kill it. And I almost did by doing dumb things like trying to control it. Yeah, you can't. It has a natural growth pattern if you're doing it right.
I'm going to go back and talk weird again because I enjoyed that conversation so much. You've mentioned the word energy a couple of times. Now listen, I'm an Alabama guy, so I did not grow up talking about energy and those things. But it's amazing the last, say, 5 years, and I do mean only the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, maybe since forming True, where just different things have happened. I've had different conversations with different people. Some of them way far out there, talking about energy and how we're all energy, and energy is sort of this real, tangible thing that makes the world go around.
Yeah, you're talking quantum science again.
Yeah. And you start maybe becoming more aware that there's something to that, that it's all literally, it's all just energy.
Well, again, I guess edit this out, Britt. That's quantum science. It's just another way to look at it from an empirical standpoint. But all those books, Think and Grow Rich, Positive Thinking, PACE was seminar, was a thing I went to. Thinking it will happen. This PACE thing had a curious aspect to it. It said, he told a story that he was, he wanted a Jaguar, so he put the picture of his Jaguar. That's all part of it. What they're trying to teach you. You just keep thinking about this. So you're going to do you're going to be successful to get that Jaguar. Boom, just get it down to the core level of thinking. And so he had this picture of a Jaguar, shaved his face every morning, saw it, was successful, goes down and orders the Jaguar. It shows up and it was red, and he ordered black. Then he got home and the picture was red.
Wow.
The red one. He kept it, obviously. But so it was like, to that degree, and that's Think and Grow Rich. That's all those motivational books and stuff. That's what they're telling you, is that you can create something by the sheer thought and will of it.
Yeah.
Again, sounding odd, but
no, I
believe in this stuff. Yeah. I teach that, by the by, to my new people. Yeah.
This might be different or not, because I believe in it, but I believe in it in a slightly different way, because I don't believe that we can just think about it and think about it and think about it, it's going to happen. I do believe that by thinking about it, that creates this sort of domino effect of actions that we take.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I think, what was the book that came out that Oprah championed? The Secret.
Sure.
That's like the dark side of it to me. It's like, if you just think about it enough, it's going to happen, and you have to have faith. No. It's almost to me like, I make this analogy the other day. We have some partnerships with some coaches and professional development people in True.
Of course. Yes.
And they're all good, so I'm not talking about them. But sometimes you can be engaged with a coach, a business coach, a sales coach, something, and you're better even with an average coach because you're in the game.
Sure.
I mean, you're in it, and you're daily, and you got daily goals, and your accountability, and your reporting. And at the same time that you're in something like that, if you have something in mind that you are, I don't like the word manifest, but you're visualizing, you just tend to work towards it.
Sure.
Right?
That's in the Bible.
Yeah.
I'm a Catholic, but I also happen to listen to Joel Osteen. He talks about that, okay, so God gave you this ability, this capacity, this opportunity, then the ball's in your court.
Yeah.
Go out and make it happen as a goal. Absolutely. Not just, oh, great, I earned this, I deserve this because I breathe. That's the Generation X, right?
Yeah.
Those employees generally, not mine. Mine are wonderful. But yeah, that's that ethic. No, you've got this wonderful opportunity. It's yours if you want to work for it. Yeah.
It's my daughter, Madeline's 25 now, and she's been very, we talk maybe every other day, a fair amount for our places in life, right? Just still talk every day, or almost every day. And she's very, she would say, Dad, you manifested true. Like all the things you said to us growing up, And I said, well, you do start to believe, though, that there is something to the forward energy of, I've said some of the same things for a while. We have so many similarities. I've said before, I'm like, before I started True, I had a job offer to run Alabama for USI with sort of a, hey, we're probably going to have a southeastern region now because it's run out of Texas.
Sure.
And I actually verbally accepted that offer and was going through the last, it wasn't even an interview. They offered it. I verbally accepted. And then the guy said, I want you to talk to some of the people in New York. Let's talk about the reporting and how that's going to work.
Yeah.
And we got through that.
You did? I thought that would be a deal breaker
well,
there.
So it was. I got home and I just said, I'm going to be a terrible employee. no matter where I was.
Sure.
Because I had left the agency. We had sold our small little agency. I'd ran that that little thing for 2 years. I wasn't a good employee there. I did consulting for a year before True. I was not a good employee there. And then I was about to go work for a big insurance company. I was going to be a bad employee.
Yeah.
And the only thing that changed really is that what I was going to do, the goal of True, was 25 to 28 agencies.
You kind of messed that up.
Yeah, I did. I was going to hire one assistant at some point just to do some admin stuff.
Messed that up.
Yep. And I was going to I had an income goal. And I said, I only want to work 30 hours a week. I'm going to have these agencies that are like this big study group. And we're going to do cool stuff for them. And, the core of what we're doing, but obviously not everything we're doing now. And I'm going to live here at the lake and watch kids grow up. And I'm going to have this income.
Sure.
That was it. But it's interesting as I can remember, for example, one of my best friend's little sisters growing up here. I vividly remember this from childhood. We're in high school. We're talking about what we're going to be when we were older. And she said, I can so see Scott on a mobile phone, not a cell phone, but the old cordless phones.
The brick,
walking around his pool, making deals, and being real successful. And I can remember having that thought too, like, yeah, that's something I wanted. I can see that.
Shoot.
But it is kind of like energy to get there.
Well, if you think about it, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about that last night. So, we're out. The value of True for me was, it's a collection of people I like. That's very important to me. It's a point. Then I'll share. Otherwise, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I'm isolated as an agency, whether it was 3 people or 30, 35. We're isolated. So it's us. So 1 equals 1.
Yeah.
And then True, the synergism's there. 2 doesn't equal 2 anymore. 2 equals 8 or more is the esteem I hold True in. Mm-hmm. That's energy. That's a collection of like-minded, awesome people. And just doing stuff together, and that's much bigger than I could achieve in a 35-person company, which is no small agency, dedicated just benefits. That's no small agency. I'm kind of proud of that, but but we needed True. We needed that synergism. I needed to meet Liz and Val, and Jackie, Dan, all the guys, Monahan.
It's so interesting to have that many. We have so many good people in our lives.
Exactly.
I mean, so many good, hardworking, driven, curious people.
Mm-hmm. When we're blessed again, absolutely, because of that.
Totally
absolutely.
Blessed. Mm-hmm. I've said many times I'm the luckiest person I know.
Yeah, I am actually. You lose. I've got 20 more years on you, 25 more years on you. So, yeah.
So when you look at your career now, 52 years, are there things that you're most proud of?
You ask these tough questions. Yes, yes, for sure. Is it, again, I didn't start out to sell insurance. I saw the value of insurance in people's lives. We can change, and I'll also give you part of my speech to new employees. This is my speech. You're messing with people's lives. So if you don't care enough, then when you need to step up and get the care they need, beat up an insurance company or a doctor or hospital, which we do, are rather proactive on our advocacy, then I don't need you, because this is your job. It's not to move policies. That we do not do that. We provide this service to clients to help them out in their worst time. Kids sick, they're sick, spouse sick, stuff like that. So I'm proud of that we delivered that to a whole host of folks. Mm-hmm. So much so that, I've had clients been with me 50 years. So I am very proud of the fact that they hung with us, because we delivered on that promise. When they were in serious need, we were there. So I have this awesome collection of people, which I'm very proud of, that care. So I surrounded myself, like Ronald Reagan said, with the smartest people you could find, because I'm not the smartest person in the room. But I had a component to that, the most caring people I could find, and I got them. And then to use my words with them, then I entrust you with these people's lives. I'm proud of that. And we've done that for 50 years, to the point that they hang with us for 50 years. That's a hell of a trust in a business community, where they could have said, I found some chump that's cheaper.
Yeah.
And they exist. Not as good as us, but cheaper, certainly.
Is there anything you'd add to that around what makes you get up? And you're one of the hardest working people I know.
Thanks.
In your 53rd year or whatever this is in the industry. What makes you get up and stay so excited to work so hard?
Pretty much that. We're doing good work. You know, I was getting in a lot to help people. It's just that industry changed. But so I by accidents backed into this thing, and it fit the goals. Yeah. And then I realized it, and then I watched it. Early on, I sold a life insurance policy to a family, and it was two moving points. And so, you know, I sold the policy. I went away. The policy's issued. And come back. I call up the family to deliver it. The guy had Hodgkin's. Yeah, he's in the hospital right now. In those days, Hodgkin's was a death sentence.
Yeah.
So, you know, thank God I had the policy. I bumped into him or he bumped into I, whatever it caused that. That's one. Another, I was talking to this, and again, I work wedding leads like everybody else did, or baby leads. And I was talking to this young family, and the dad was just the husband was just giving me all this pushback, and I couldn't figure out why. And I kind of struck on it. And that was, he didn't think he could qualify because of his history. And when I told him, I'll get you qualified. I can do this. I'll commit myself. He started crying. So anyway, that's what makes me get up in the morning still, because we still have that impact. People call us up, as I got diagnosed with cancer. Now what? You know, it's not quite the death sentence it was in many cases, but sometimes it is. Yeah.
Well, I know one thing for sure is that the world needs more Dan Maniacis.
You're being kind now.
Well, I'm being also truthful that the commitment that you have, that it's part of your natural makeup, but the curiosity, the desire to help other people, the fact that you are still carrying through with that, you're still curious, helping people, and the amount of people that you've been able to touch is amazing.
Cool. Thank you.
I told you this time was going to go by fast.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we have to cheers at the end.
Yes, okay.
There's about 2 hours worth of questions that I could ask you. And so
I was going to tell you about the Monterey Pop Festival.
We're going to come back to, you know what, that's a good way to leave it, because that you always want to leave them wanting more.
Oh, okay.
So, and Maniaci, cheers.
Thank you.
True love.
Cheers, God. Thank you very much.
Hey,